Hey y'all, Wacky here with another Dwarf Fortress tutorial. Last episode we talked about workshops. We really just skimmed the surface of them. We talked about placing them down into the world. We talked about what the different color X tiles in the cursor mean when you're placing a workshop and how important that is. We talked about the tiers of workshops, how some will feed their outputs into others, and so it's not necessary to build them all straight away. Like some you're gonna wait a while because they come later in the game. So in this episode, we're going to talk about actually producing goods at a workshop. And specifically, we're going to talk about the vanilla ways without a manager to produce goods at a workshop. You have to make those two specifications because, number one, DF Hack, which comes with the Lazy Noob Pack, it has a plugin called Workflow, which is incredible, which I use all the time, which I will do a tutorial over. I just think it's important to get the basics down before you jump into that. Number two, you can also appoint a manager noble who can go around and they can sort of do a lot of the things Workflow can do, just in a little bit more roundabout way, sort of. Both of those things come later in the game, so I'm not going to talk about them in this tutorial. In order to look in on a building, remember that Q is our go-to button for that. Q is set building tasks and preferences. So I'm going to hit Q and move my cursor over to the Mason's Workshop, and then I'm presented with this list of things here. So at the very top, we got the name of our workshop. We have hotkeys for the different actions we can take at this workshop. And then at the very bottom, we've got our remove building key that we've seen before. Note that in bright red here, profile requires manager. So that's telling us we could do some other cool stuff if only we had a manager. We'll talk about that stuff later. So in order to get started here, the only option that's available to me at the moment is to add a new task. So I'm going to hit A. And I'm presented with this list of things here that this workshop is capable of producing. I can maneuver through this list like most lists with plus and minus, or I could just hit the hotkeys that this has designated for each of these options. I like using plus and minus because when I'm queuing up multiple things, it's going to remember my spot in the list. So if I maneuver down here to door, press enter, you see that I now have construct rock door added to the queue. Now if I were to go back and add a new task, I'm already sitting on rock door. Because normally when you decide you want to produce something, you want to produce multiples of those things. So I'm going to queue up several doors. Doors are extremely useful in your fortress, and you're going to be producing them your whole playthrough. But now that I have tasks here, I have options. I have things I can do regarding those tasks. Before I get into that, it's useful to know that there are a total of 10 slots here that you can queue your task up in. We've already talked about adding a new task. We can also cancel any tasks that are located here by hitting the C key. So this list, like most other lists, I can maneuver with the plus and minus keys. So if I had done a different, say this was a coffin here and I decided I didn't need the coffin, I can maneuver up to that. I can hit C and now it's gone. That specific task was taken out. Next key we have is details. This is a very useful key. This allows you to specify what material your products are going to be made out of. And material does have an impact on some products. You know, we talked about materials for buildings and how it only affected color. That's the same for a lot of products, but there are a lot of products where it does matter. So keep that in mind, especially for things like doors, tables, and chairs. I really like to make them all out of the same material because they're going to show up as different colors if you don't. And it just looks so weird having all kinds of different colored doors all over your fortress. So I like to make them out of the same material, but that's entirely up to your discretion. But you see now that we selected a material, this now reads construct a slate door instead of construct a rock door. It's a specific thing. Okay, so we've got this going, and my dwarf is going to work down through this top to bottom, right? He's going to start at the top and work his way down to the bottom. I might decide I need this slate door before I want any other door. That's where this promote task comes in. So I'm going to hit P, and that's going to bump it up the list. And then once I get to the top, the P option, the promotion option, is no longer available. So that's promotion. We also have do task now, which is in. So we can hit in, and we'll get a little exclamation point beside whatever task we're sitting over. Remember in Dwarf Fortress, you don't micromanage your dwarves. You don't say, dwarf, go do this right now, for the most part. You assign tasks, and the dwarves decide at what times they want to do them. This adds a high priority to this task, so you should get your dwarf to stop whatever job he's currently doing, come in and do this. If they were hauling material or whatever, they're going to get finished with that job before they come in and do these other ones. But if you assign it a high priority, they're going to come in quickly and go ahead and start working on it. The next two options we have are repeat. So we can hit R. And now this is a repeating job. That means they're going to produce slate doors as long as they possibly can. They're going to produce a bajillion of them if they possibly could. Producing goods on repeat can be very useful. A lot of the times I like to put goods on repeat that I'm planning to sell to the caravans. So, it's like mugs or toys or things like that. Stuff I'm just mass producing, and I plan to ship a ton of it off to the caravans and to give me a lot of trade value. It's also useful for things like doors, especially in the early game, things you're going to need a ton of. But just keep in mind that there's nothing stopping your dwarf from producing until the end of time. You need to come back and check your stocks every once in a while, make sure that you're not just swamped in doors or mugs or cups or whatever. And you just kind of have to manage that a little bit. So then the last thing we can do is suspend. We can temporarily suspend any activity here or any task that's up in their queue. Suspending doesn't clear it, so it remains there. It just makes it easier to unsuspend and get it going again, but they're forbidden from doing that task until it's unsuspended. It's useful to know that some tasks can be auto-suspended. Anytime you don't have enough of your input material, it's going to auto-suspend that task, and you'll have to come back and unsuspend it. But you will get a notification. One of your announcements will say that so-and-so has suspended this task, not enough materials, stuff like that. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'll see y'all in the next episode.